guys, welcome to Enneanerds. I'm Bethany. I'm a type 5.
And my name is Grace, and I'm a type 7. Enneanerds is kind of a fun and quirky look at the Enneagram. So we hope that you enjoy this episode.
Absolutely. So before we get started, we want to do a quick life update. It has been about roughly a year since some of our later episodes have come out. And so a lot happens like in a year, like a lot. And so I'll go first because I feel like my news isn't quite as exciting as yours. But I managed to move houses within this year. And it's in the same neighborhood, about 30 seconds from my old house. But it's a nicer house, it's, a little more spacious, and I get to renovate it. And I'm starting that process now. So I'm really, really excited about that. And I'm switching jobs. I will no longer be a teacher anymore. I got promoted to a dyslexia specialist in my district. So that's really exciting. I get to work with kids who have dyslexia all day long in small groups, and it's like the dream gig. So yeah, that's my news.
Dyslexia specialist just sounds so intriguing.
Right.
Woman of history. I like it so much. Yes. I'm so excited for you, and I can't wait to actually see your house for realsies.
Yes.
I've gotten the whole, video tour, but I haven't seen it in person, and it looks so beautiful. So my news is really, I will take full responsibility. It is the reason why we took a year-long hiatus. For those of you who are a little confused, because maybe you have found Enneanerds a little bit later, between this episode and the previous one you just listened to, there's been a year since we've recorded. And it is because last summer I became pregnant. Oh my goodness, the scandal. Yes, me and my hubby, we became pregnant, and turned out that it was twins. And so all of last summer was my first trimester, and I was sick to the nth degree with morning sickness, to the point where I was completely horizontal all summer long. So the idea of sitting up and recording and editing was just too much. So we took a break until I started to feel better, but then I started to feel better as soon as the school year started, and we're both school teachers. So that's why it took us so long. So here we are a year later. I am now the mother of 2 beautiful, perfect, angelic princesses who are just loves of my life. I'm so happy. And I will try not to talk about them too much on the podcast, but let's be real. For the Enneagram, it infiltrates every corner of your life. So I'm sure now I'll have, the parental perspective on the Enneagram. So
well, and you have my permission to talk about your kiddos literally all the time.
They are your godchildren. So
yeah, it doesn't bother me at all. So go right ahead. So those are life updates. A lot happens in a year. So anyways, now we've come back together, newly formed people, and we can talk about the Enneagram again.
Yay. And thank you to those of you who messaged us about how much you missed us and our podcast, because that was the real motivation for coming back. So thank you guys.
It really was, because we were wondering if we disappeared, anybody would notice. And we had several, lots of people that said something to us. So that is very special. So we appreciate you. Shout out to all of y'all. So this episode is probably going to be on the longer side, and it's going to be a more vulnerable episode. So get ready to get in your feels. Grace told me about this book called The Life Council. And it's 10 friends that every person should have in their life. And if 10 friends seems like a lot to you, it is a lot. It is. But the way they break it down, it kind of makes sense in your head of oh, okay, there's 10 types of friends that can fill different, friendships in your life. And it's called Life Council because it's your council of friends. Friends are very important to me. They're very important to you, Grace. And I don't remember where you found this book.
I found it on a podcast, actually. The author, her name is Laura Tremaine, and she was interviewed on Annie F. Downs's podcast called That Sounds Fun. And it was just one of the best podcast episodes I've ever heard. I immediately texted Bethany and my mom and my sister, and I was like, you have to listen to this. Because, I mean, I think a lot of people do talk about how hard it is to make friends as adults. And so this just, like, so many light bulbs came on during this conversation between these two women about adult friendships. And yes, it does sort of skew towards female friendships, but I think men can absolutely get a lot out of this as well. And she says in the book, like, her counsel titles that we're going to go through, those are hers. Like, you don't have to use these same ones. You know, you can change the counsel titles to whatever reflects your life. Mm-hmm. So even if you are a guy and you read this book, I think you can kind of tweak it to work for you as well. But that's where I heard about it. And so since it's 10 council members and the Enneagram has 9 people or 9, you know, types, we just thought automatically these correlate with each other. So absolutely, we have to mesh them together.
Yeah. So what I did was I went through each of the types, and we'll read all the different friendship types that she mentions. And then I was thinking what numbers would best suit that type. Because when you're listening, I listen to the audiobook. So when you're listening to the audiobook, she's asking you along the way to try to identify what type of friend are you? Like, where do you fall in people's life counsel?
Right.
And then also what places your current friends have in your life counsel, and then what's missing. And so if you figure out something that's missing, then you may, if I give you numbers of like, hey, I think this person, you know, this type would fit this friendship, then maybe it'd be easier to find that friend.
And also to clarify, these 10 friends aren't like you have to have these 10 friends right now. It's like 10 friends over a lifetime, which I think takes a whole lot of the pressure off. And then the other last thing I wanted to say about this is Bethany and I on this podcast have talked about labels a lot. And like some people love labels, some people despise labels. We both like labels. But even if you don't like labels, I think this is a good practice for just individuals because it takes a lot of pressure off of friendships. And that's a lot of what I got out of this book because I think, especially as adults, because we typically don't have as many friends as you do when you're like in elementary school. I think once you have a friend, you put so much pressure on this friend to be like everything to you. Like, oh, this person has to be my confidant and it has to be my fun friend and it has to be, you know, all these different things. But putting that people sort of in categories, it kind of releases you from like
expectations.
Yes, exactly. So I loved that.
Yeah, I totally agree because the downfall of some of my friendships is because I was putting expectations on them that I shouldn't have because they weren't that friend, you know? And I love the idea of like your friends have specific roles that they play for you. To help you have a good life, you know?
Yeah.
So shall we just kind of dig into like the different types of friends? Okay. Should I just go ahead and list them all or we want to go by one?
I think we should go one by one and just give like a brief rundown of what that friend is.
Okay. So the first one I have is the daily duty friend. This person is the person who you see probably every day, typically at your job. They're the one that you will run to whenever you have good gossip. the one where you're doing a lot of your daily mundane tasks together. And we all have those friends, you know? So I said that I think a 2, a 9, or a 6 would be a good fit for the daily duty friend.
So I only chose one number for each, which was very, very difficult. So it'll be fun. Well, it'll be fun to see if mine line up. So I chose 6 as my idea of a daily duty. So why don't you pick 1 or 2 of yours to focus on, and then I'll talk 6. Okay.
So I said like the 2 and the 9 for the daily duty because I feel like 2s are they're very present people, right? And so I feel like they're very like if they're at work and they're there for you and they're like the helper. And so like doing all of these tasks I think fits well for that. And then I said the 9 because I feel like 9s are so easygoing that they're going to fit within like just, hey, we have to do all these things and then all these tasks and they're just going to want to do them with you.
I chose 6. I almost chose 2, so I fully agree with that. I chose 6 because to me, someone who's in your daily life, who's seeing all of you in all your grit and glory and dirtiness,
Right.
that has to be a pretty loyal person who's going to put up with that, because people have mood swings from day
This
to
is
day,
true.
and
People get
their life goes up.
stressed.
Yeah, their life goes up and down. So for me, I think 6. And also, I was thinking about specific friends that I have in my life that are 6s, and I feel like I can be really authentic with them. Like I do really feel comfortable. And some other numbers, even though they are so wonderful and I love them, there are some numbers where I feel like I kind of have to be my best self around some of them. And I mean, that varies from person to person, obviously. But I feel like in general, with most of my 6 friends, I can just be my grimy, disgusting, real authentic self around them. And they're not going to really, abandon me, So that's why I went with 6.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that sentiment of like, we're at our worst at work sometimes, getting really stressed out. And so you're going to need somebody with loyalty to be your daily duty friend who's going to be there every day for you. And so I agree. I think a 6 fits perfectly with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I even thought beyond just work, but like someone, I think of a daily duty friend as someone who like knows where your spare key is and like can just show up at your house and like come in your house if it's a mess or if you haven't brushed your teeth or whatever, like they're still going to be your friend through all of that. And so that was kind of my thought process.
Okay. The next friend is the old friend. And this friend is your childhood friend that you've had for a very, very long time. You may not see them every day. You may see them once a year. You may see them once a month. It just depends, how often you can see each other. You've grown up together, but then you went your different paths. But you're still friends. And so I think a 4 would fit well for the old friend. I don't know, maybe I associate 4s with like childhood magic and like, just like the nostalgia. And so I think I put all that together and it was like, I think a 4 would be such a good old friend.
Yeah.
Because you can reminisce together and think about your childhood.
Yeah. I was very similar in the thought process for that, but I ended up choosing 2 for that. Ooh. And I think it's because my 2 friends, for the most part, are really warm, comforting people. And when I think I have so many old friends, I would say the majority of my friends are old friends because I've moved so much. So there's so many people that like I knew for a year or 2 and then we moved away. But I look back on those friendships with such warmth and nostalgia, like you said. And so I kind of associate that warmth and that comfort with 2s. So that's kind of my thought process. This one is a hard one to type because your old friends can literally be anyone.
You meet with your children,
yeah.
You don't even know yourself yet.
Exactly.
But anyways, yeah. And I also think I could throw a 6 in there as an old friend because they're very loyal. And I also think I could throw a 9 in there as an old friend.
Absolutely.
I feel like I have 9 on the list like a ton of times. But it could be because my life counsel has got a lot of 9s. So like it's possible that I just think everybody just be at 9. If you want a good friend, go get a 9. So anyways, the next one is the business bestie. So this person is your person that you are, it is work related, but could also be like the person that you just like get stuff done with. The person who's going to encourage you to chase your dreams, your goals, achieve your goals, that kind of person. So naturally, I think your business bestie is probably going to be a 3, maybe a 1, because I associate those numbers with people who are go-getters. And want to achieve all their goals, and they're going to help you and support you in achieving your goals.
I went with a 3, and I know that's cliche, but for me, I think when it comes, I've had so many different jobs, but like my dream job is like to be an entrepreneur and have my own business. That's like my dream. But I don't know if I completely have that entrepreneurial spirit naturally. And so for me, a business bestie would have to be someone who really inspires me to like be that hustler and push myself and, you know, try new things and take risks. And so I see that in a 3. I see a person who's going to be your cheerleader, but also kind of like show you the way. Right. You can learn from them and be inspired by them. So that's why I went with 3. But I think a 1 would be brilliant as well.
So this next one is they're the fellow obsessive. And these are your friends who are going to geek out on whatever you're geeking out with, that are going to be all bought into whatever you're freaking out on. Whatever fandom you're into, whatever board game you want to do, like that's the fellow obsessive. So naturally, I feel like I fit into this category for a lot of people. So I think a 5 is going to fit into the fellow obsessive very, very easily, because there's so many things that interest a 5. So many. And if you tell me you're interested in whatever, I immediately go and research the heck out of it so I can know more about it and I can relate to you better. And then it might also get obsessed with it. So yeah, I think a 5 is going to fit the fellow obsessive very well.
I almost chose 5 for those exact reasons. And because you and I are both obsessed with the Enneagram. So you're definitely... You're definitely one of my fellow obsessive life council members, for sure. I chose 4 for this only, you know, because that's how I picture a lot of 4s, is they do become really focused and obsessed with things. And I feel like a 4 wouldn't a 5 wouldn't either. 4 and 5 I'll choose for this one, because I feel like neither of them would judge you on your interests, because they have so many interests. So yeah, I mean, and I definitely have a lot of interests. I mean, Taco Bell and Disney and Lord of the Rings and the Enneagram. And I'm always looking for people that are also obsessed with those things.
Well, and I have tried Taco Bell because of you.
You have.
I have watched Lord of the Rings because of you. I have done several things because of you. Because I want to know more.
Yeah.
So that's your fellow obsessive. It's probably my favorite number because it just fit me to a T. All right. So the next one is the battle buddy. And this person is your person who is there for you in the hardest times. They're the ones that are going to advocate for you, that are going to go through the lows of life with you, and they're going to lift you up when you're down. And so the battle buddy is somebody who I feel like has some righteous anger, who is going to be more of a presence. And so I couldn't decide, but I was thinking 8 or 7 for the battle buddy, because although 7's like a lot of fun, and especially since I know you and you have a wing 8, it's like you are going to fight. Like, you tell me all the time you want to fight. like anytime somebody crosses anybody, you're like, I want to fight. Like, Grace, don't like go to jail. Don't do that. But yeah, like, just, I don't know. The battle buddy is somebody who is there for the toughest times and not as scared of it. And so I think an 8 or a 7 would fit that well.
Yeah. This one I went back and forth with a couple different numbers. I ended up landing on 1. And the reason I did is because I went back and re-listened to our zombie apocalypse episode. And you used the example of a 1 being Captain America. And I think that's so brilliant. And so then I started thinking about battle buddy, because, like, obviously Captain America can go into battle. He can stand his ground. He, you know, fights for justice. But then he's also compassionate and empathetic and kind. And so I see a 1 being a really good battle buddy to have in your life. However, in my life council, I put you as my battle buddy.
I put you as my battle buddy.
Really?
I did. Because we went through all the crap together.
Yes, we did. I mean, to be honest, I have you for a couple different numbers. Well, but I definitely put you for battle buddy, because for you guys, we're not going to go into it, but we've had a couple really hard years.
Ever since we turned 3, everything went to crap, and it's like terrible.
But Bethany and I really went through it with each other, and I mean, I will be completely forthright and say that like you definitely went through more than I did, but you were still like so kind and understanding and encouraging to me through all of that, even though you were going through worse than I was. So I just, yeah, I mean, and then I was also thinking, you said whenever you tell me things, I say I want to go fight, but I feel the same with you. Like you're always like, you're a strong, independent woman. You can do this. Go talk to your principal about this. Don't let a parent talk to you that way. You know, that kind of thing. So you're really encouraging to me to go and like handle my business, you know? So,
yeah. Wow. I actually thought you might have been offended for being my battle buddy because you're not my yes friend. And so I was like, she's really mad at me for not being my yes friend.
Other people's yes friend. It's cool.
Yeah. but I was like, but it means so much more. I think the battle buddy means a lot.
I'm super flattered.
Okay,
and good. I do want to fight so many people.
All the time.
All the time.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Okay, so the next friend is the yes friend. So this is the person you go to when you are like you're sure that they're down for whatever, like no matter what, and they're always going to say yes. And once again, I have a hard time deciding. I think a 7 is the typical yes friend, but I think a 2 and a 3 would also be down for kind of whatever. I have 2s in my life where oftentimes last minute they'll ask me to do something, and newsflash, I am not the yes friend, unfortunately, but they are like, but if I'm like, hey, let's go do this, they're like, yeah, absolutely, you know. And then I think 3s too are also going to be more inclined to do spontaneous yes trips. Yeah.
I mean, I chose 7. Yeah. And this was another kind of just like cliche choice, but it just fits 7 because we usually are like totally down to do things. I think for a lot of my friendships, I probably am the yes friend, because I love trying new things, and I am down to do lots of things. I'm definitely more of a homebody now. And we've talked about doing an episode someday about like the different ages, like numbers at different ages. So I'm definitely like, I'm a full adult 7 now. So I'm not quite as spontaneous and cuckoo crazy as I used to be, but I'm still like always excited to try new things. So I just felt like 7 fits that pretty well.
I agree. And other 7s I know, it's usually a yes. So here's that. The next friend is the mentor. So these are your people you go to when you're looking for advice, for wisdom, for guidance, your spiritual guide, whatever you want to call it. And I think a 5 or a 1 is going to be a good mentor. I think that in other people's life counsel, I might be the mentor, because I think, or maybe I just give unsolicited advice and people just have to suffer. Like, I don't know, but I do feel like I talk a lot, like with a lot of people, like a lot of vulnerable things. And so I think that a 5 and a 1 who has clarity usually is very even-tempered, can give objective advice. I think those 2 numbers are your best bet.
I chose a 9 because I feel like for a mentor, you need someone who you can go to, you can vent to, and they will listen and be empathetic, but then they can also give you the opposing viewpoint. And I feel like 9s can relate to all the different numbers because they have aspects of all the numbers. And so, and I mean, my mom and my husband are both 9s, and they do that exact thing. They will let me like scream and cry and get all my angst out, and they'll be kind and empathetic, but then they'll be like, but think about it from their perspective. Maybe they're coming from this angle or whatever. Right. So that's why I chose a 9. I think 9s would be a good mentor.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that because like I was thinking, who is my mentor? And surprisingly, it's my little sister. But she's so like wise beyond her years. She always has been. And so I always go to her for like, she's like usually the first person I call when I want some kind of advice. And she's a 9. So you have a point there for sure.
I'm very wise.
You're not the mentor. Okay. But yeah, I think you do have a point there. The 9 could definitely be a good mentor as well. So the next friend is actually not a friend. It is called the empty chair. And I'm actually just reading these in the chapter order from the book, and I found it odd that she put the empty chair kind of in the middle of in between friends. But basically, the empty chair is a way of saying that you are always holding a spot for somebody else to come into your life council. No matter how scarred you get from friends in the past, or it's basically saying like you don't completely close yourself off, and you keep an empty chair for somebody new to come in and fill that spot.
That chapter was really hard for me to read. And that chapter was a big chunk of the interview with her and Annie F. Downs. They talked a lot about like friendships ending and how painful it is. And I think most people have had at least one friendship really, really end. And it's as painful as like a romantic breakup, if not more painful in a lot of ways. And so, yeah, the empty chair is that whole chapter is just kind of really hopeful, actually, because it is like, yes, people grow apart, or, you know, bad things happen in friendships and they crash and burn, and it's so painful. But that does open a spot for another person to come in, which I have definitely seen that happen in my life. So yeah, I didn't choose a number.
I didn't either. No, I didn't either. I just was like, it's something to think about and have in your mind of like always having the space there for somebody new, and not getting jaded from past relationships, because you don't know who's going to waltz into your life. You know, like we met when we were 27, 28, somewhere in there, you know, and who knew that there was a best friend coming in the late 20s, you know? And then like, I've made a really good friend this past year, at work, you know, like, so it's just, you never know who's going to waltz in. So always have the space there and available.
Right.
So then I guess the next friend is called a new friend. So maybe there is sense to putting the empty chair there. I don't know. It's your new friend. And so these are the people who come in and they are there, and they're just the new exciting person that you're getting to know, and you get to experience all the highs of meeting somebody new and having a relationship with them and getting to know them and doing fun things together. And this is when I do my trust test on everybody. You won't be my new friend if you don't pass my trust test. And so I think there's lots of numbers who are going to be more apt to be a new friend. And because there are some numbers who are more outgoing, more inviting. I would put a 2, I would put an 8 there, because 8s are assertive. And so they're probably going to be more apt to introduce themselves and get to know you. A 7 would be there as well. I mean, I don't know. There's so many people.
Yeah. I think I am probably on people's life council as new friend, because I have moved so many times, and I do always try to make friends, and I try to be outgoing and all that. So I really relate to the new friend chapter. I chose 8 for this one because a couple of reasons. One, yes, they're outgoing and they're assertive, but also making a new friend is always a little bit scary, because you don't know where it's going to go, and you have to be vulnerable. And 8s can be intimidating or a little bit scary. But then kind of like with 5s, you have that obstacle course. I feel like there's also a little bit of an obstacle course with getting to know a dynamic with an 8.
Right.
But once you're in with an 8, oh my gosh, there's such amazing friends. So
absolutely. 100%.
I kind of feel like 8s kind of fit that one.
Yeah, and one of my people in my life council, she's an 8, and she's been a longtime friend, and she scared the crap out of me when I first met her. So she was very assertive and very friendly. And so she's like the person who just like sticks her hands out and says her name and introduces herself right away, and no problem. And I'm like, how do you do that? So she's wonderful, and she is definitely an advocate. You want an 8 in your corner at all times. And then the last type of friend is the soul sister. So this is your person who you kind of click with immediately. There's no need to do trust tests. There's no need to, you just automatically kind of trust them, and you feel like your souls are kind of aligned. And it's a beautiful thing. I couldn't pick a number for this one. I've had so many people that I have clicked with in my life who I feel like they're like a soulmate, because like, I don't think there's just one soulmate. I don't think it's romantic. I think that you have multiple soulmates that you meet throughout your life that you just click with, and they're there. But they're also, I've learned, they also go quickly. And so it's kind of like they're there for a moment, and they're there to help your soul and help you be like a better person, and then they're gone. That's kind of like my take on the soul sister. And so I couldn't pick a number.
Yeah. I don't think this one can really be assigned a number. The thought process I had, and I like what you said, that you have multiple soulmates and they're there for, a certain amount of time. I think to tie it into the Enneagram, a soul sister or soul friend, whatever, could be someone who's the same number as you. Because you would relate on so many deep personality parts, like our motivation is the same, and our vice is the same, all that kind of thing. I don't think a soul friend would have to be the same number, obviously, but I think that's one perspective it could take, because I know, like, I would probably relate to another 7 more than I would relate to, a 2 or, a 9, So that was kind of my perspective with it.
And I look at all my soulmates fondly. I look back in it and I think that person was probably a soulmate because they came in for such a short time, and I felt like I learned from them, and then they were gone. And so I look back on it very fondly. But I don't feel like your soulmate is a forever friend.
That's so interesting.
I feel like they're there just to help.
That's a totally different perspective than I think other people would take, but I kind of like yours.
Thanks. It's beautiful.
And I like, and this, you helped me learn this, because ironically, even though I have friends that live all over the world, I have a really hard time accepting that friends are friends for only a season. I have a really hard time with that, because I just want the idea of like, oh, we're going to grow old together. But in reality, I knew you for like, 2 years, and I've never seen you since. Like, it's okay that friend was only for those 2 years in that location under those circumstances. So, I like that idea that even someone as impactful as like a soul sister could be just for a short time.
Absolutely. So in her book, she also talks about some of her friendship philosophies, and I found these absolutely fascinating. I have my own philosophies that come with friendships. And so I thought I'd read hers. We can just discuss briefly what we thought about each of her philosophies. Do we agree with them or not? And then I can tell you my philosophies. And then, of course, you're going to agree with me because you agree with me on everything. But she has like, I think 5 different philosophies, friendship philosophies. First, she says that friendship is a to-do. It is something you have to put work into. And I totally agree with this.
100%.
You have to be intentional with the friendship, or it will not survive. You can't just magically hang out with somebody and run into them every week. Like, you have to, make those appointments to see each other in order to continue the friendship. So that's her first one. Do you agree with that one?
Oh, 100%. Yes. Yeah. I don't even have anything to add, because it's just, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. It's a to-do. It's not just something that's going to magically happen. Believe the best. So this is saying that put aside your worries and fears when you have friends, and believe the best in them. Believe the best is going to happen. Believe that they are the best version of themselves, and that y'all are together in it together. Because if you go into a friendship and you're not thinking they're the best person, it's like, why would I even spend time with you and be your friend? You need to believe that they're bringing their best to the table.
Yeah. This one would be absolutely in my own personal friendship philosophy. I think that would maybe be like my top number one rule is basically give someone the benefit of the doubt. And I think it's because for me, when I was reading The Empty Chair, and I've had 2 friendships end, like end. And I know I made mistakes. I'm not trying to push blame on anyone because I know I made mistakes. But I do think that through those friendships ending, I think I did give those individuals the benefit of the doubt. And I was trying to think of the, from their perspective. And I don't think they gave that to me.
Yeah.
And that is still really painful because I still don't really know what happened there because they never really explained it to me. Even though I asked and stuff like that. So that's definitely super important to me that like just give someone the benefit of the doubt, talk it through. And if something happens, then something happens,
Right.
If that friendship has come to a close, that's fine. But like, try not to think so sourly of someone. I don't know.
This goes to show our different perspectives because this one out of all of them would be the one that I'm like, meh. Like, doesn't matter. I would get rid of it. Like, I don't know. It's just, but it's different perspectives, right? I don't think I have been burned by past friends as much as you have. And so, yeah. But anyways, the next one is just go. This one is probably the hardest one for me to do. I struggle with just going. I have social anxiety. So it makes things socially very hard to do. So for people to just go, I'm like, how do you do that? How do you like just get rid of the anxiety? I know not everybody has anxiety, but I don't know. It's really hard. But I do for friends. I'm like, I need to just go. I just need to go and be there.
They focused on this one on the interview with Annie. And what I really liked was, and hopefully I don't step on anybody's toes, and this is a little bit different of a perspective than you're coming at it. Laura Tremaine was talking about how a lot of people use the phrase self-care in kind of a not so healthy way.
Right.
And they won't do this. They won't just go in the name of self-care. Like they'll say like, no, I don't want to do that. So I'm going to say no. But in friendships, sometimes you really do need to just do something. Yeah. Just go for your friend. It doesn't really matter if it might be a little uncomfortable. It doesn't really matter if you're not super jazzed to give up your Friday night to go watch them salsa dance. Like just go. It's not self-care to be, selfish, I guess, is kind of what they were talking about. And I thought that was a really, really good point because a friendship is a to-do. And sometimes that means you have to sacrifice a little bit.
Yeah, that's the word, sacrifice. Sometimes you have to sacrifice your wants and needs to make the friendship last. Because if you don't show up, what's that going to do to them? Yeah. So people get hurt. I would get hurt from that,
Yeah, me too.
This one the next one I've been saying to myself a lot and putting into practice, and it's like every selfie. It's so easy. It's so easy to like every selfie because it doesn't take any energy whatsoever. You're on social media anyways. You see something from a friend, like it, no matter what, no matter how much they post, like it, because they notice, like people notice when somebody doesn't like their stuff. And so it's like, I don't know. It's just it's like I've been putting it into practice because I am a silent scroller. I try. Like I won't interact a whole lot. But now every time I see a friend, I'm like every selfie. And so I just do it every time.
Yeah. I totally agree. This has been a conviction for me as well since reading it. And that's another thing they talked about in the conversation. She was saying like, it's really pretty toxic to see something and choose to not like it because maybe you think that person's being full of themselves or maybe you think they post too much. But that's really just toxic on you. the person not choosing to. And she was also saying she had done a poll with her Instagram followers on whether people notice. Do you notice people not like your stuff, or do you notice? And like I think it was kind of 50-50, but tons of people did notice. And I'm absolutely one of those noticers.
Like, I notice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I mean, like, if you, my best friend, didn't like something, I wouldn't automatically think like, oh, we're having problems. But if there's someone that I'm kind of iffy with, you know, like I don't really know how this friendship's doing, and suddenly they don't like any of my stuff, which has happened. That's kind of like a nail in the coffin. Like, oh, okay.
Well, I guess we're not friends anymore.
Yeah, because I mean, it's not that, but like I know they're seeing these things and they're actively choosing to not like them. Because I know they're active on social media, but they're choosing to not like my stuff. You know, that it's more powerful than you think in today's society. So
yeah, so just like every selfie, just do it. It's fine. It doesn't cost anything from you. Exactly. So, and then the last one, your spouse is not your best friend. And it's a hot take because a lot of people feel like their spouse is their best friend. And I am not married. But I would hope that when I do get married, the person I'm married to is a best friend. Somebody I want to spend a lot of time with. And so I want to hear your thoughts, and then I'll share what I think a better clarification is.
Yeah. So I'm kind of 50-50 on this because I do consider my husband one of my best friends, and I do genuinely, and he feels the same way. Like, we love to hang out with each other. Like, if we weren't married, I would still choose him to be someone that I hung out with, you know?
Right.
But the conviction that I had with that is that my husband can't be everything. He can't be my spouse because that's a very specific role.
Yeah.
And he can't also be my best friend and also be my, you know,
soul sister.
Soul sister. I was going to say something else, but I'm too embarrassed to say it.
Now you have to say it.
My mom listens to this. Oh. I was going to say the word lover. I hate that word so much. Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay. He can't be all those things. And I thought about you. Like, oh gosh, this is taking a turn. No, I thought about you and the Enneagram.
Right.
If I try to talk Enneagram with Brandon, he nods very politely and he says, yeah. He's just very surface level interested in the Enneagram. But you, I could call you and we can dissect the tiniest thing that someone did and figure out like what their stress number is, like all this kind of stuff.
Right.
And so that, because you're my best friend and Brandon also is, but I can't,
it's different.
He can't do all the things. He can't be all the things. And so I agree with it, but also I think it's okay if your spouse is your best friend. They just can't be your only
all of your best friends.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That was a clarification, was your spouse can't be all your best friends is what I think a better phrase of that is, because I think that you like your spouse should be somebody you want to hang out with and fills a role. But then like you talk to me sometimes about Brandon, you know, and stuff that's going on because you need to dissect some stuff. And so like, that's fine. You can't talk to him. He's the source. So like, you have to go to somebody else. So I don't think your spouse should be all your best friends.
Right.
Like, you know, but I don't think they shouldn't be it's not your best friend, period.
Yeah.
I think it's, Anyways, moving on. So then just a couple more things. Here are my philosophies. I think that every friend has a season. Some seasons are much longer than other seasons. Some seasons are only for a few months, you know, sometimes only for a year. I think people come and go. And I learned this pretty quickly growing up. And my sister was the one who actually, my wife's sister, she's the one who actually told me about this while we were growing up. And she's like, not everybody is ride or die. Not everybody is going to be in your life forever. And that's when I was like, oh, so everybody has a season. So I've lived by that, and it's helped when friends do leave. It's like helped to not be so hurtful.
You taught me that.
So came from my sister. So she gets ultimate credit. Yeah. And then I have just one more philosophy about the different types of friends. I think that there are friends who are proximity friends, surface friends, and deep friends. And I think it's good to recognize what type of friend a person is before you get super invested, because it'll help save you from some hurt. A proximity friend is a friend because they were literally close to you physically. And they're only a friend because you're there. Yeah. And it's easy accessibility. So a lot of work friends end up being proximity friends. And so I have that mindset at work a lot of the time of like, oh, you're a proximity friend because your classroom's literally next door to my classroom. But the second that we are not next door to each other, it's not going to go any further. Right. Then there are surface level friends who are fine. They're great to be around. They're fun to be around. You don't have to dig deep with them, and you're just going to watch a movie together. That's great. Hang out, But I understand that they're a surface friend, and when they shut down because you want to dig deeper, it's because they're not there. They don't want to be vulnerable with you. They may be vulnerable with other people, just not you. And that is okay. And then we have our deep friends who we can actually go deep with and have very long-lasting friendships. And so those are my 3 types of friends that I feel like everybody should be aware of when you are looking for friends and knowing the difference.
That's super, super wise. I like that. And I like that still makes all of those friends are all still valid. Those are Absolutely. All still valuable people in your life. But to have them in those categories does protect you from some hurt. And I think, take a shot for every single time I say, like, I've moved around a lot in this episode. But because I've spent my whole childhood moving around and most of my adulthood, I have literally, and I had this kerfuffle, this epiphany just the other week. I think I have always, my entire life, been searching for my best friend, like the ones in the movies, and that, can just, they have a key to your house and they come and blah, blah, blah. And they're blah, I don't know. Totally fictionalized. I've always been searching for that friend. And so I've given that title to certain people throughout my life. Right. And to be totally honest, most of them have, not that the friendships have always ended, but it's kind of ended in disappointment on my part, because they probably already have that best friend from their childhood that they've gone through life. But I'm the new friend. And so I'm searching for, and I'm trying to give that title to someone. So that always ends up just kind of disappointing me. And so I wish that back, in the past few years that I had known about those 3 friends: proximity, surface, deep, and then also about how friends are seasonal. I wish I had known that, because I think I could have protected myself from trying to give that title away so much. Right.
Right. And I think knowing those 3 categories helps stop you from putting expectations on other people. Like when you know somebody's a surface friend, okay, they're a surface friend. I'm not going to worry about trying to dig deep into their past and what makes them who they are, because they're a surface friend and they just want to watch a movie. And so let's do that, and just enjoy it for what it is, and not put expectations on them. So yeah, I'm glad that I can bestow this knowledge on you now.
Therapy for me.
Right. It's healing. But I feel like that's a good place for us to stop, talk about the philosophies. And if I'm curious if other people have philosophies when it comes to friendships. And yeah, I could talk about friendships all day long.
Yeah, it's so fascinating, especially coming at it from an adult perspective. Friendships
Right.
are complicated, but
they're
they're
a
beautiful.
relationship. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
They are relationships. So you have to work at it. So, yeah. All right. Well, we'll end it there. I appreciate you guys watching. If you made it this far, because this is like a full-blown like hour-long episode now. But yeah, so check us out on Instagram. If you have not, give us a follow, and we'll see you next time.
Also, check us out on YouTube, because we are now on
Yeah.
YouTube at Enneanerds as well. And then finally, last thing before we go, if you write us a review, we would love to give you a shout out. So go to anywhere that you listen to podcasts, write us a review, and we would love to shout you out.
Absolutely. Bye.
Bye.